Eddie Howe is criminally underrated. Yes, you heard that here first. Criminally underrated. Now, I know there's going to be many Newcastle fans that agree with me, but the way I hear this man talked about, I think it's really bad in football terms. I don't feel he's given those flowers, I believe the kids say. I don't believe he's given the praise he deserves. What a fantastic football manager. And more than that, looks like a fantastic man as well. A measure of a man. He comes across brilliantly. Let's have a look at Eddie Howe, shall we? Eddie Howe. Everyone just assumes, don't they, that, oh, it's Eddie Howe, Newcastle. Let's have a look at what he actually done to get this Newcastle job. Let's actually have a look and see what did he do to forge his way throughout his coaching career. This is a guy that took over Bournemouth. This isn't the Bournemouth that we know and love watching today. This isn't the Bournemouth that are currently in the top 6 of the Premier League. He took over a Bournemouth that were a couple of games away from going out of the Football League. So that we're going out of League 2 and going down into the National Conference. This is the team that Eddie Howe took over. And Eddie Howe in a decade, I believe less than a decade, managed to get this Bournemouth team from rock bottom of League 2 to the Premier League. That is a phenomenal achievement that not many managers can achieve during their lifetime. Yes, it's okay. We say so-and-so's joined Arsenal, City, Liverpool, Real Madrid. But yes, sure. But taking a club from League 2 all the way to the Premier League, keeping them there for 5 seasons, fighting for European places before eventually succumbing and getting relegated. What an achievement that is. And it gets overlooked. And you don't do that unless you're tactically astute, unless you're willing to learn the game, unless you're willing to adapt and bend your ear to listen to others. And I think Eddie Howe has done all of that magnificently. Now, even when he left Bournemouth, by the way, this is after winning the League Manager of the Decade, the Football League Manager of the Decade he won. What a great accolade that is. So he then has a year away from football. And during that time, he was studying, I believe, the likes of Ajax. He was going around to like the Ajaxes, the Portos. He went and spent a lot of time with Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid, studying, learning their philosophies, learning his coachings, the tactics, the ins and outs. And he's come back to Newcastle. And there was a lot of noise around it at the time. There was a lot of noise, wasn't there? Steve Bruce has just left. Got Eddie Howe, but the last thing Eddie Howe did was get Bournemouth relegated. Is this the guy? Well, what a rip-roaring success story it's been. And I don't know, I'm guessing the Newcastle fans will tell me that they wouldn't swap Eddie Howe for anyone else right now. Let's have a look at what happened when Eddie Howe took over at Newcastle. They were rock bottom. They were rock bottom, whether they were 20th or 19th, rock bottom in terms of confidence, form. Fans had never been as unhappy as they were at that time. The players were down and out. The players were all called terrible. Players that are still there today, by the way, the likes of Fabian Schär, Willock, Longstaff, these people that are still there today. And he came in and took them. They were favourites to get relegated when he joined. They were favourites. The bookies had them as favourites to get relegated. And Eddie Howe managed to get them from bottom to get them right back up that league table. And then the very next year, achieved Champions League qualification. Now, people will turn around and go, oh, but their investment, their owners. Well, yeah, they've got the richest owners in world football. But they can't spend all that money because of PSR and FFP, all of these regulations that have come into football in the last 15, 20 years. And he managed to get that team back into the Champions League. And as I said, a lot of players that were already there, a lot of players that had them in the lower echelons of the Premier League at the bottom, the likes of Willock, Longstaff, Schär, Almiron. These players were there. Murphy, these players were there. And they were told they were terrible. Oh, what do you expect with these players? And yes, with some clever signings, the like of a Dan Burn, Yeah, those sort of players. Yeah, they brought in Gomares and Isak, but Isak wasn't the household name. And they've just done that. They've just done that. And they get Champions League football. And yes, it was always going to be tough their first year back in the Champions League because they don't have the squad to sustain Champions League and Premier League and the Cups. But also during that time, Eddie Howe has got them to 2 League Cup finals. So 2 years ago and now this year. So Eddie Howe in that time of doing brilliantly in the league has got them to 2 cup finals. And it's not just that he's got them in cup finals, it's the manner in which he's done it. You look at the Arsenal semi-final. You look at that semi-final, and I looked at a manager who was tactically astute, had a game plan, and knew exactly what he wanted from his players. And his players clearly respect him enough that they managed to adopt those tactics, take those instructions on board, and implement them perfectly. Now, the way I saw that was in the first leg, they went racing into a lead, didn't they, in the first half? I thought they overloaded Arsenal. You could see their intent was hit them on the counter-attack, keep going. And they overloaded. They got their goals. And then in the second half, you saw Eddie Howe switch from that back 4 to the back 5 or back 3, whichever way you want to call it. And he took off his striker, Isak, didn't he? And he put on Lloyd Kelly. And suddenly Newcastle knew what they were protecting. So I saw a team go from the first half where it was attacking intent, whilst maybe sitting in, but with the attacking intent to go and get goals, to the second half, which was protect and preserve what you've got. And you saw all of that in 90 minutes from a manager. Some managers can't do that in their career. Some managers have plan A. There's no plan B. They don't know what to do when things get tough. Then he goes to Arsenal. He goes to Arsenal in the second leg, and people are saying, okay, it's 2-0. Arsenal can get this back. It's only 2 goals. It's at the Emirates. They're the second best team in the country. And he goes there, and again, just wonderful, wonderful tactics. And the next thing you know, he's in a final. And I, for one, I don't support Newcastle. I don't support Liverpool. Gosh, I hope that Eddie Howe wins that League Cup. I think he deserves it. I think he is criminally underrated. You can see that there's a good piece, an article on him about a year ago, I believe, reading about what he learned from Diego Simeone, about it doesn't always have to be beautiful. There can be beautiful bits of the game, but with some of those kind of dark arts as well to get the best out of players. And that is, for me, what I love in a manager. And I would love him at Spurs. And by the way, Newcastle fans, I'm not sitting here saying we're going to get him. I just would love a manager like that at my club. He's likable in press conferences. He's likable in interviews. I think he comes across well. When Newcastle lose games, he takes it on his own shoulders. He'll say what he got wrong. Yeah. He'll call things out that need to be called out. But it's always well thought, well planned what he's going to say and how he's going to say it. And for me, I think when he does leave Newcastle, this is the sort of manager we should be seeing getting a top job in football, whether that's a Man City, an Arsenal, or Liverpool. This is the sort of bloke for me that always gets overlooked. Is it because he's English? Is it because English managers have a bad reputation? Should he have got the England manager's job? All of these different things come into play. But for me, I think pound for pound, he's an absolute brilliant manager. Now, if Newcastle United win today, I'm recording this in the early hours of Sunday morning, by the way, in the UK. So it's the 23rd. It's the early hours. If Newcastle United win today, they will go level on points with Man City. Obviously, Man City play later. And they will be 3 points off third place. What an amazing achievement that is. He doesn't have a deep squad. They've signed really well, bringing in players like Lewis Hall, Livramento. He gets the best out of these players. Look what he's done with Tonali. He's just done such a good job. He rotates well with the likes of Barnes, the likes of Gordon, the likes of Murphy. He's done so well. So for me, I'm going to put out there right now, Eddie Howe, criminally underrated, top manager, never gets his dues. And it's a real shame. Let me know what you think. Doesn't have to just be Newcastle fans, all football fans. How good is Eddie Howe? Why does he not get the praise he deserves? Until next time, take care. See you soon. and Eddie Howe, criminally underrated.